All right, so today, rather than working on the app, I actually wanted to take a look at this article, which is by the Pragmatic Engineer. I think it's a great newsletter to take a look at for quick articles on what is happening in the engineering world. So today I wanted to look at AI's impact on software engineers in 2026 with the key trends part 2. And this is because I've noticed even at my company that AI has definitely gotten into the zeitgeist of what's happening versus 2 years ago it was just sticking into the IT department, and now it's all over. So even though this says the impact on software engineers, I think it can even be expanded to the impact on corporate America as a whole. And there was even the first paragraph, which I did look at, I felt already sort of outlined what is happening. So let's get into it. We have trade-offs of AI tooling and why adopting AI at company level is so hard. And this is immediately what I am seeing, is that it is hard, and that's because it's so vague. I'm seeing a lot of managers and even C-suite people start to mention we need to start adopting AI technologies into our workflow, but nobody's defining what those workflows are or what those technologies are. I think Claude Code is just an excellent tool, and 99% of use case, maybe that's a little high. How about 90% of use cases can be solved with just Claude Code or Claude Cowork, and we don't need to spend lots of time and energy trying to figure out how to deploy AI agents. So we've already looked into certain ideas, and so far nothing has really stuck. The closest one is another really simple way to include it, which is adding MCP. So that's the I'm not sure what MCP stands for, something protocol, but basically it makes it so that your chatbot is now hooked up to your database. So this is great for dealing with structured data. So if you want to ask questions about your relational database, or I'm sure other structured databases, then MCP is a great way to do that. And I found that actually is solving for a great many use cases. So I don't know if it's necessary to try to figure out how to include AI in every single little thing when we can just use the tools that are already provided for us. So the third and final part of the series, analyzing, this is part 2, analyzing our 2026 AI survey results. And I did read the first part, and it was very informational. I liked it a lot. I'd love to compare it with 2025. I feel like I have that email somewhere, and just see how those trends change, because I think they've changed a lot. So earlier this year, we asked the Pragmatic Engineer subscribers about the AI tools you use, how you use them, and crucially, what you think of them. We received more than 900 responses, which is very small compared to like the old Stack Overflow ones. I think the one thing that I'll miss about Stack Overflow is the surveys. Those were industry standard surveys that would have thousands of individuals. I would even take them. They were so easy to take, and they gave you a really good look into what was happening in the engineering world. Okay. So we're going to recover the trade-offs of AI tooling, positive and negative sentiments, like how AI tools often mean less time spent on tedious, repetitive work, but it also leads to unrealistic business expectations. I've definitely seen that, although I'm actually starting to see, I haven't seen it too much at my company. I'm sure it's happened more. Sorry, my cat is taking over the desk over here. So I am sure, or I'm actually impressed with how much it hasn't really led to unrealistic expectations. There's been a bit of it, but not too much. I've seen some business people create MVPs. I've seen them say, oh, look, I built this thing really quick, so now I don't actually need a technology person to build it. For the most part, I've seen it built and them going, okay, so now what? I need a technical person to help hook this up. So I haven't seen too much, at least in my area, although I'm not in tech, I'm in finance, so maybe it is different in tech. Adopting AI at scale is hard. Companies are struggling to achieve adoption that feels productive as the team and org levels. I definitely see this. One, I don't know how much more productive. I'm more productive in coding, and I would would say that coding was about 20% of my job. So if I'm 4 times more productive at 20% of my job, and I don't even know 4 times, let's say twice, then I don't know that math honestly in the top of my head. What was that, like 10% increase or something like that? So I'm not that much more productive, but I am more productive in the coding aspect. Our survey and also the search aspect. It is great for searching for stuff, including today I had an Excel document where one of the formulas was trying to pull in data from another Excel sheet, and it was failing because I didn't have access to that Excel sheet, and this document was massive. And normally I'd have to click through a bunch of sheets to try to figure out where in the workbook that it's being referenced. Instead, I was just able to ask Claude Excel or whatever, the add-on for Excel, where it was, and it pointed me to it, and I was able to just delete that and then move on with my day. So for information retrieval, I found AI to be actually an excellent use case. Impact on code-based quality. Code-based quality seems to be decreasing. So I haven't seen that, but we don't use AI to write a lot of our code yet. So this hasn't been too big of an issue. Meanwhile, maintenance duty is falling apart upon the shrinking number of engineers who still understand increasingly complex code bases. So we have not hired any junior engineers. Everyone we've hired has been a senior engineer level in the last 5 years or so. So I haven't actually seen this situation where somebody comes in and starts producing millions of lines, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of lines of trash code. Instead, I'm seeing a lot of senior devs who are skeptical about AI and using it in a reasonable manner. I have seen project managers create nonsense in Confluence and Jira with AI. And so where I'm seeing kind of the slop isn't actually in the code, it's in Jira. And Confluence on some teams became unusable due to the amount of auto-generated meeting minutes and documentation. Less experienced engineers and AI. For these folks, AI seems to be less helpful, and they rack up higher AI token bills. Again, haven't seen this. They may need more space to learn, mentorship, and support. AI tooling addiction. Using AI engines feels like a slot machine, encouraging just one more prompt type behavior, while some folks think that is pricing plans built in a way to lure them to prompt more and more. I definitely feel that slot machine a little bit, although I'm never like that impressed with what it produces. So it's kind of like if I was to pull a slot machine and it just kept giving me pennies, I would be kind of bored. And that's what basically I'm seeing. Like it helps, but the amount of work I have to put in to get a good result is enough that it doesn't really feel like a slot machine. It feels like putting in the work. If I don't put in a lot of work into creating like I don't know, if I make a 5-page design document that takes me 4 hours to make, then I do get a pretty good output on the first try that then takes about 2 to 3 days of me going in there and fixing things. And so that doesn't feel like a slot machine. Versus if I try to just type a few sentences, I get nothing. It's completely useless. The code it's good for visualizing. Like maybe I want to I use it a lot for brainstorming ideas on how my UI should look. So that I do find is pretty useful. But definitely not feeling this sort of slot machine that I keep hearing on the internet. And I haven't had any coworkers talk about how they feel like there's a slot machine. Changes since 2024. Fewer devs are negative about AI, but there's not all that much more positivity. The models have become higher quality and better tooling improves trust. Okay, I guess that makes sense, yeah. Where are we headed? The concept of code ownership seems to be eroding and collaboration within teams becomes less important. That's true. I actually don't want to work with people as much anymore because I'm worried. I know I said I haven't seen that code generation yet, but like I'm worried that I will be paired with somebody on a project and they will just, because I have worked with people in the past who've been that, who have moved on to greener pastures, maybe because they thought my company moves pretty slow. And I've always been nervous of somebody coming in and then getting paired with that person and them generating that, 10,000 lines of code a day. So I do kind of want to just stay in my bubble and collaborate with the people who I trust. So I think trust is becoming more and more important than ever, and that both people should be on the same page of how you want to utilize these tools. AI tooling for software engineers in 2026. A detailed summary of survey responses covering the most used AI tools, trends, AI agent usage, company size and usage, and tools engineers love. The impact of AI on software engineers in 2026. Key trends part 1. Concerns about mounting AI costs. That's already something I've spoken with my manager about, is that do we even want to give the business access to tools like Claude? Because the token cost is becoming more and more of a concern. And so I was even talking about the MCP of how useful that was for me for just getting some simple data questions. And do we want to give that to some tech savvy business people? And the answer was no, not yet, because we don't know what kind of tools or queries, I guess, or prompts that they will create that is going to create such a high amount of token generation, and that those costs are, we're already seeing those costs and we're not really seeing the benefit. All right, so AI tooling trade-offs. What can be said about the impact of AI tooling on engineers this year? Well, based on the responses that readers sent in our survey, here are some common patterns. Code, output trade-offs. Area, increased speed and output, more code, pull requests, docs, etc. Positive impacts, less toil, spending less time on tedious, repetitive, undesirable work. More time on important stuff, extra time for higher level and enjoyable tasks, tighter feedback loops, more flow state time, more scope to do neglected smaller tasks. Smaller things looked overlooked due to the low priority of impact. Yeah, even today, my tool called Bite Size Tech, it's been on my to-do list to get this into a mobile first website, and I just haven't gotten around to it. And I was just like, why don't I just spin up a VM, pull in that code, and then just have an agent? It did change a lot of stuff though. I didn't see that. Okay, it's not too bad. But it did change some things. Anyway, now it looks much better on the phone. And so here's what it kind of looks like on the phone. And even the sign-in button and everything is better. So now when I load up an article, then it appears very nicely. And so this was just something I never got around to doing, and I was able to, because it's not really something I'm interested in. I'm not interested in mobile first UI development, but now I was able to just spin up a UI to do that. So that's like a tedious task that I was able to give to Claude Code. And this is something that probably has millions of examples of how to do, and so it is very good at doing it. It didn't change too much the design, although it did surprisingly change a bit of the design on the front end, just making these boxes more smushed together. But overall, it did a good job in one go, and nobody really visits the site, although you can certainly check it out. So it's really just me and a few other people who use it, so I'm not too concerned with the overall look, but I did want it to look good on a phone. Okay, negative impacts is overwhelming output volume. I definitely felt this for a little bit until I cooled down and started actually thinking about when do I want to use it and when don't I. CI/CD load, I don't notice this too much. Inflated business expectations due to the higher output. I haven't noticed this yet because I don't think the business is too aware of it, but it's definitely a concern of mine. And then being overwhelmed by reviewing a lot and doing more in general. Less tooling friction, faster onboarding, definitely. I love it for onboarding. More hands on deck. More devs can contribute to more stuff. I don't know about that one. That sounds actually risky. I'd rather have fewer hands on deck in this. I actually like the idea of smaller teams working on more things rather than large big teams all working on multiple things. Hands-on managers. Managers and leaders can engage more. I don't think I want that either. All right, more orphan parts of the code base. Increase in code nobody fully understands or can owe to in the traditional sense. I think that's definitely a risk. I haven't seen that yet, but it's something I'm looking out for. Code base decay, subtle bugs, tech debt, bad patterns accumulate. Again, haven't seen that yet. Lower quality, decrease in idiomatic code and language-specific best practices. Again, I haven't been in a code base that looks like it's been completely generated by AI, so not seeing that. Code is cheap. More tools built, more custom scripts, small custom programs, quality of life improvements and one-off solutions. I definitely see that, and I definitely make tools that help me in my day-to-day work. More building outside of work. Yeah, I'm definitely building a lot more outside of work, fixing stuff that wasn't important before. Again, the example with the bite-sized tech, doing a mobile first. This is just something I was not interested in doing, not really interested in learning, and now I got it. Small stuff isn't production ready. That's true. So I have a lot of little tools that I've made myself, and coworkers will see them and be like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm not going to take the time to put it into to get it up to the quality that is needed for it to be in a production environment. Tech debt accumulates in production code bases. Definitely a risk. Productivity trade-offs. Okay, so continued. Easier to get unblocked. More deep work and focus. Yeah, definitely. No stupid questions. Reduces friction. Unblocking yourself. Totally agree. Today I was having an issue with SSH keys, and I've had this issue in the past on AWS and have been blocked for days, not being able to figure out how to get my SSH login keys to work, just due to firewalls and due to configuration and all that. And then now with Claude, I was able to figure it out in a couple hours. It still took time. It still took like 2 hours to work around with a lot of the issues, but it was so much faster than what it was 3 years ago when I was having similar issues with AWS. Less shared learning. I definitely agree with that. I barely code with people anymore versus I used to call people up on Teams, or they would call me and we would work through issues together. Fewer constructive discussions and disagreements. LLMs are articulately sycophantic and agreeable. So sycophantic, yeah. Yes. Definitely. I think it's important to always ask it to double check its work and also double check your ideas, and you'll be surprised how many times it goes, oh, you're right, this is actually a stupid idea. And you want to do that like 2 or 3 times, especially on important decisions. Cheaper and faster building. Devs can build and prototype faster. Absolutely, you can prototype so fast. Cheaper and faster, lower costs of testing and communicating ideas effectively. Agreed. Cross-platform collaboration, potential for deepen understanding and collaborate across disciplines. I agree with that too. Non-devs fix bugs. I don't know about that. That doesn't sound like a good idea. Building the wrong thing. Easy for bad ideas or poor features to reach fruition and what should be built. That's the discussion I've definitely had with people, is that we don't want to be building too many tools, because if we get to just so many tools out there, because you can build whatever tool you need in a couple hours, then business people are going to start, and we pass those to the business. Those tools are still going to have bugs, and they're still going to need to be serviced, or they'll want new features and everything. So I think it's very important, if you're going to build a tool that is not just for you, you really need to question if it's worth building. That is now a much more important question than it was before. AI slop. Agree. More bugs. Yeah, I see more bugs now. Less communication. Expertise and domain knowledge overlooked in favor of asking AI. That's probably true. I still love having technical discussions, but I have them with fewer people, but I still do have them quite a bit. So I don't think it's been too much of an impact for me. The 10x effect, decreased cost of context switching. Yes, I think context switching is just bad. I think running multiple agents is bad. I stick to one task at a time, and I try to stick to one task at a time throughout the whole day or for several hours. Like, I'm not trying to work on multiple things at once. I try to get features over the finish line before jumping to the next thing, and I also try to understand what I am implementing. More output without more input. No proportional increase in the time spent for added output. I don't know what that means. Covering more ground. Devs can do work that previously fell through the cracks of capacity. Totally agree. Drastic increase in context switching. Oh, I see, a decreased cost in context switching. Okay, so I disagree with that. I think there's always a cost to context switching. So a drastic increase in context switching and fragmented attention, totally agree. Increased cognitive load and burnout. I think if I've tried, I haven't gotten burnt out yet, because I've caught myself of really going at it, and then I was able to take a step back, kind of like when you're painting or drawing and you're drawing really close and you need to step back from the painting occasionally and see what it looks like. And if you're vibe coding, you can just be in the weeds all day. There has been times where I've been making tools and I've been so excited, and then at the end of the day, and this didn't happen too often, because at the end of the day, you step back, you look at what you made, and you realize it's not good software. It's not very usable. And so for me, I was able to see that kind of the first couple times that I really went hard and spent, I maxed out my $20 Claude subscription in one day. But then I took a step back and looked at what I had produced, and it wasn't good. So now I actually slow down and I don't find myself hitting that burnout because I don't speed through things, and I still take a long time to actually work through the features that I'm implementing. Loss of focus. When everything can be worked on, it's harder to turn down tasks. Definitely agree with this. Even if you're things that before you'd be like, no, that's going to take me a week to do, so I'm not going to be able to do it. Now you can be like, well, I will just take 2 hours, so let me just do it. And then within that 2 hours, you think of something else that takes just 30 minutes. And then you think of something else that takes just an hour. And before you know it, you've gone on these paths throughout the day. But the main North Star that you were supposed to be following, you didn't actually get any closer than you would have without the tools. And maybe you even slowed down a little bit. I definitely have found that. And I have to use a lot more effort to stay on the course, because now it's so much easier to get distracted. It's kind of like if you were in a used car lot as a teenager and the only car you can afford is a 2001 Toyota Corolla for $2,000. You're just walking past all the BMWs and the Mercedes and the Jeeps, and then let's say today you had $100,000 in your pocket and you just need to get a car, but you're walking through the used car lot and you're seeing every single car as a possibility for you. And by the end of the day, you don't end up with any car because you didn't even make a decision, but you did test drive all the cars, but you didn't actually get a car. And I think that has happened to me, and it's something that I look out for. And it's definitely something I've noticed. All right, AI expands. Who can do high value work? Analyzing and reading and deciding 49%, production works 17%. I don't really understand this, but let's go through. Nearly half of Microsoft 365 Copilot, chat user support, analysis, decisions, and problem solving. The kind, I don't even, just because it said Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, I don't even really want to look into this. I don't care what Microsoft Copilot has to say. Obviously, Microsoft has an interest in showing the benefits of its AI tools, but Copilot, I don't think that has any benefits. But in this specific area, it's telling that both studies agree AI does allow devs and non-devs to expand the type of work they do. Maybe a little bit. Like, I work with some business people now who are able to give me wireframes, and I get, like wireframes actually do stuff and can show me what they want to create. Software ending trade-offs. Software engineering trade-offs. Okay, so we're still going through that. Boundaries blur between roles. Yes, devs work at a higher abstraction levels. Agreed. Get involved in non-dev work. Agreed. Managers doing IC work. Non-engineers and hands-off leaders are starting to do hands-on work. I have not seen that yet, but I'm sure that happens. Negative impacts. Okay, so that was all positive impact. I still don't think managers doing that is a positive impact. Like, should they be getting into the weeds? Maybe, but I know the managers that I work with, I think they're good at what they do, and that's not getting into the weeds. But, I guess I should give them a chance if they do end up. There's probably a lot to learn from them. Negative impact. Loss of joy in crafting code by hand. Totally agree with that. Grief, particularly for engineers who value the craft. Agree with that. Career anxiety. Absolutely agree with that. Personal relevance, the future profession. It's a massive change for code to be generated for us. I think this is one that we all have. There was a lot of has been anxiety in your career since 2008. And now, at least in my time, it's more than ever of, will I have a job in a year or 2 years? It's hard to plan forward. Should I start looking for a new house? Should I move? Like, There's big financial decisions that now it doesn't feel like you can plan for, and rather you have to just save up the cash to do, because you don't know what your income's going to look like in 2 years. And a lot of these bigger decisions, you want to have like a 5-10 year plan. And before, there was a feeling of, okay, one, you could get laid off, but if you do get laid off, you'll probably find a job pretty quickly. And two, you're probably not going to get laid off unless you're really not good at your job. Now there's this feeling of, even if you're great at your job, you could still get laid off. And then when you do get laid off, it could take 6 months, a year. I've seen people who I interviewed over a year ago are still on LinkedIn looking for a job. So I definitely feel that career anxiety, and I'm assuming a lot of people do as well. Being unexcited by new work, tasks that are unexciting and unfulfilling. I'm sure that is the case, especially for people who love the craft. Easier to work on unfamiliar stuff. Work in unfamiliar environments. Definitely. I've learned to work on so many areas that I just have not had the time to look into. So that's been really cool and exciting. More breadth. Totally agree. I feel like I've learned a bunch of DevOps just in the last 2 months that I never really had the time or even needed. But now there's just little tools that I'm building that actually require this knowledge that I didn't know about, including I've never had the need to set up just a small VM and then SSH into it and use Tumux, and now I finally understand why those things are all so helpful. So that's pretty cool to have. Less reliant on specialists, reduces dependency on individuals for special knowledge. Maybe, but honestly, I think now more than ever. So I kind of disagree with this actually. If you're a specialist in the domain of your company and you know the data and you know the processes and you know the industry better than anyone else, the domain knowledge within a company is still not in an LLM. And even when it is, say for like Claude Enterprise, it still has no idea. Domain knowledge is now the most important thing that you can have. So I guess like a specialist, say in web development, yeah, that's probably not that useful. But if you are a specialist in the specific trading platform at your company, in how a trader books a trade and then that trade flows through and then eventually makes it into the fund accounting department and then is eventually booked into the accounting software that is then makes it to a data warehouse that analysts can look at. That's not something that Claude knows how to do yet. That's not something that any LLM I've seen knows how to do yet. That's still something that if you're the guy or girl or person that knows the full details of that domain within your company, you are incredibly valuable. Skill atrophy, forgetting how to do things. Definitely agree with this. This is why I think it's still so important to code by hand, and I try to do it at least an hour of every day. So even if it's kind of wasting time for maybe an easy task that an LLM could do, I still try to start my day with that. And then as I get more tired, I'm more of a morning person. So in the afternoon, when my brain's not working as well, that's when I can start to do tasks that I think in the LLM can do just fine. But I still think it's important to code every day I think you're a better prompter too when you are a skilled coder. So I think that skill is still totally relevant. Shallow understanding. This replaces deep expertise over time. That's definitely a risk. Foundational skills might not get acquired. I even worry about that now. I don't know how many deep skills I've learned since using AI. My breadth of skills has increased a ton, but I wonder how many deep skills I'd have versus that now that I don't really need to dive deep into things. And also, if I get stuck, I can just get unstuck pretty quickly. How much better have I actually gotten at these deep skills? I'm not really sure. All right, so that's that section. I think that's all I'm going to cover for today. This article continues to go on. I highly recommend subscribing to the Pragmatic Engineer. I think it is a great newsletter. I will be continuing to build out let'emcook.io, And then if you want to check out the Bite Size Tech website that I have here, feel free to check it out. And I will see you guys in the next one.